Okay, I got my food. I'm gonna munch on it a little bit. But oh, that's a lot of text. The book is about a guy finding a hole in a wall in his accommodation, which leads to an empty room next door. So he starts just peeking through and gets addicted at observing over people's lives. Honestly, book had such moments that stuck with you hard. Just be careful, it had lesbians in it. Say carefully as in early English translations, they remove that part as it was looked down upon. Oh, I see. That sounds interesting though. I'll definitely look into it. It's just called Hell. But yeah. Dagon is pretty short. That much I know. So we're probably gonna play another game as well. Do you guys want to play Veiled, which is another short kind of 1-bit style horror-ish game? It's also kind of the way it looks definitely looks kind of Lovecraftian as well. Or we can move on to another game. We get to play. I mean, it's kind of like you guys are playing, you know? Let's see. I've got a list of games right here. I have we can play Veiled. Which one is Psych? Oh yeah, this one's early access. We can play Veiled, which is another short one, or move on to Subway Midnight, which isn't purely horror, but it does look very interesting. Or we can do Inscription. Any of those tickle your fancy. Give me a bit, I'm gonna munch on some food. you talking about binaural audio, Jeff? Um, I find it a bit weird sometimes, but I mean, it depends. I don't think I necessarily jump at it, but it is kind of just strange sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, it's called binaural audio. It's just when it's allowed to go from one end to the other. I love Louis' song, Ghost Choir, which is what this song is. It's very, very nice, very cute. What did I get for food? Um, I got a beef bowl with a side of kimchi. I posted it in the Discord if anybody wants to see. You know what? I'm gonna actually just take this time to. Okay, no, no shade to this dev, none whatsoever. But this is, in my opinion, the funniest way to put this. There's a trigger warning.txt that I downloaded for Veiled, and the trigger warning is, Veiled is a horror game, and some of the themes represented it may be disturbing to some people. These things include dead child, suicide, and just dead child. A single dead child. I don't know why you would put it like that, but it's kind of funny. Is it a bowl made of beef? No, it's a bowl with beef. Beef inside. Yeah, it's very good. I don't know why you would put it like that. Suicide, but also a single dead child. So, trigger warning. Instead of just dead children, dead, death, I guess? Graphic and disturbing content. Yeah, you could put that. I feel like there's better ways to put there is a dead child in this game, I guess. Just death or something. Or depictions of dead people, of someone who is dead, or I don't know. Definitely disturbing content or something could work. Yeah, I'm gonna eat a little bit more and then we'll start Dagon. You like image trigger warnings going from the lightest to the heaviest to like prepare you, but this just goes 100% from the beginning. It does. I think that's why it's so funny, is just because it's the first thing you read and it's right in your face. But also, yeah, it's like these are the only two trigger warnings for Veiled. It is it is a dead child and suicide. These are the only two things in this game. Okay. Okay. I'm good to go. Let us start up Dagon.
I can't believe
it. Oh, actually, I remembered that I had In Sound Mind installed. That's another one that we could do. Also, just a reminder, Dagon is free. It is a free game. Huh. Did I buy the DLC? I don't think I did. Well, let's get through regular Dagon and we'll see. I don't see anything in the way of trigger warnings for Dagon. This game is loud. Yeah, you recommended that for sure. There. Much better. Controller vibration. Don't want me to use the controller? I can. But Rudy, you never answered my question. Where did the day go? I mean, I don't know where you are, but it's still here. Yeah. Let me restart the game so maybe it starts up with controller controls. Aren't we playing Dagon? Oh, VSync off. Always VSync off. Okay. Is Days Gone actually a good game? I haven't seen anybody play it. I don't know if it is or not. Hang on. I just remembered I do need to change the warning. There you go. Best I got. Days Gone is a game. Don't know about the pacing, but it is an interesting take on zombie apocalypse setting. Interesting. Dagon is a faithful, interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on story and atmosphere. Don't think there's any racism in Dagon, particularly, but we'll see. You'll not find difficult choices, action sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along with the plot.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
He's still very loud. Can I pause here? Better not, actually. I might skip all of it. During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey, others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Some of this trivia is hidden in order to find these secrets. Focus your eyes and look for the Elder Sign. I like that controller specifically is an SNES controller. That's great. You can also access all of the found facts later. They will be available in the menu. Okay. Voice volume. Let's go to 75. That should be. How do I move? Or do I just literally click?
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Darkest Dungeon? Is that you? there might be some underlying racism and anti-Semitism. I mean, yeah. It is a Lovecraft story. It's kind of expected, but I will add that to the warning. Okay. That's a part of the package with Lovecraft, though. Yep.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
This really sounds like the Darkest Dungeon, dude. Is it just me? Morphine. Morphine entered into use in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, and World War I, 1914 and 1918. It was also sold without restrictions until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. Friedrich Saturner, who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium, after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. At the time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. He was a wonderful wordsmith, but he was also a horrible, horrible person. Agreed. He was also a deeply scarred person, and when people say xenophobic, I don't think they mean, like, when you refer to xenophobia in the context of Lovecraft, I don't think you mean it in the same sort of context that you think of nowadays, where, you know, people are, like, angry and bitter, resentful, and they, like, just harmful to the other the other person. I think from the accounts and stories in Lovecraft, he is, like, xenophobic in the sense that it is actual phobia. He is legit scared of other people. He is terrified of himself and other people.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
You loved morphium in the Matrix. So this is an interesting take. I didn't need my controller, but this is fine.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation, so that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
The Huns. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Hun as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm The second gave a speech to his troops on 27 July 1900, before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, we will be defeated. No quarter will be given. Prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago the Huns under their King Attila made a name for themselves. One that even today makes them seem mighty in history and legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of the laws and customs of war adopted during the First Hague Convention of 1899. That I didn't know. That's interesting. I'm glad this is... I'm actually really glad that they have these tidbits here. Because it's nice. It's well researched. It seems well researched, and I like that. I like learning little tidbits of history like that.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone, in a small boat, with water and provisions for a good length of time.
You couldn't find who the voice actor in Dagon is, so maybe we'll find out later. Maybe. Okay.
When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
Moon is so pretty. This set is just so pretty. Jesus. The sea is so terrifying
Never a competent
and beautiful.
navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
You're so pretty. Dang, got me. Also, yes, we. You also like Bit Golem, games created fishing simulator horror game about fishing, Dagon. Oh, no, you're so pretty. I think I remember seeing the fishing simulator game. Gray minds think alike. True.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
Also, I do want to have a conversation about Lovecraft after this.
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept.
You had some beans last night. You could go for some more. Go get some beans. If you don't got them. I'm thinking about them beans. No, but yeah. Go get some beans. Beans on toast. See, that's the very... Is that British? Is that European? Because... I don't remember, but... At least for Mexico, it's beans with tortillas, so... Basically the same thing, just different vessel to carry the beans into your mouth. You've never seen it anywhere else but Britain? That's fair. Beans on toast is aggressively British, you feel? Okay, yeah.
Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
I've been shipwrecked. You're not gonna... Okay. Gosh, this is super pretty,
When
by
at
the way.
last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
You feel your preferred method of delivery to beans to mouth hole is just slurping? You feel like you're eternally sleepy? No. Get up and walk around. Twinsies, you're the opposite. Feel like I'm sleepy enough to take a nap, but I'm not knocking out. No.
Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity.
Such a cool visualization of all of this. But yeah, Feeny, I hate that feeling where you feel sleepy, but you're not going to sleep, you know? Such a cool visualization of this.
There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Oh, those sounds, Jesus.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position.
Do you recognize the clouds? Or the clouds, did you recognize the stars?
Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
You put your headphones on and just squelch. Yep. Not as many trivia things as I thought there would be. At least so far.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
Hey, you gonna eat that fish?
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Preparatory to an overland journey. Fish. Oh no, buy fish. Buy fish. What's that?
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
That fish looks very polite. You wish it the best. Same with this one. I wish you the best, fish.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
What is that? What is that? I was trying to see if that actually looked like an animal, but just looks like a weird crab. Super cool looking. Alright, don't mean to blind people by staring at the sun. That fish definitely looks sophisticated. Yo, is that a whale? Sophisticated.
That
I just got
night, I
that.
encamped, and on the following day still
so good.
travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
Question. If you found yourself in this situation, would you try to cut off a piece of this tentacle and eat it? I hesitate to call it a tentacle. It looks more like just the body of a snake or worm. But would you cut off a piece and attempt to eat it? Those legs look revolting. You weren't saying that about your joke.
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface.
You don't think you would eat raw fish? That's fair. I'd only eat raw fish if it's sushi, and it's gotta be prepared by somebody who knows what they're doing, otherwise you can get food poisoning from it. It's in sharper relief from the generals.
Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill.
Well, on the bright side, I don't see any
I know not
animals.
why my dreams were so wild that night.
Was it gonna correct it like that? If prepared right, you'll eat anything? Yeah. If you ate fish in general, you would not be able to breathe. Are you allergic to fish, Jeff?
But ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain,
Ah, it's Gibby.
I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
Oh, is. Ah, okay.
Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset.
I mean, that's fair, but also, just as a general thing, you find yourself in a strange area, strange land, and a bunch of sea animals just kind of dying. I think I'd be more. I think I'd be more okay traveling by day where I know, like, I can see things. Being in a strange place, strange land, walking in the middle of the night, I don't know if I'd be able to necessarily trust it. Without the sun, it definitely would have been more efficient. Nice. Fish so yummy. Fish is pretty yummy.
Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence. I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
Again, they did a very good job of visualizing all of this. This is so good.
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent.
I don't know if I would trust
Whilst
it,
after
though.
a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze,
Ooh, that's the
I
thing.
scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath. Gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
Yeah, it's only a few hundred feet. Nothing wrong with that.
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
Oh, or as some say, Cosm.
That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
It's totally fine. I can't see anything.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm.
Look at that. That's so cool.
And revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope.
That's so cool.
Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books.
There's a shark. There's another shark. There's a third shark. And a turtle. Oh, I think there's a fourth shark back down there. Yeah. You see the big squid? The Cthulhu looking thing? I don't know if it's just me, but he looks buff. He looks muscular. This Cthulhu has been hitting the gym. He is getting those gains. Turtle is a shark confirmed. The squid looks like it's about to sneeze. Kinda does. I don't know if else can see that. It's just he looks swole. He's been getting those gains. Alright. Enough of that. Guess it's sea turtles at the bottom of that. There's an alligator, which is really cool. Shark. Looks like mollusks on the top left and right. Dagon, more like squid again.
Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world.
Are you sure? Because the one on the right looks like a lionfish. I think that's what it's called. Far left looks like some type of squid, and the other two are like squid and octopi, and then the middle is just Cthulhu.
But whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Yes, this one. Oh. Yeah. Storytelling methods. Dagon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his later works, such as telling the story through carvings, At the Mountain of Madness, The Nameless City, journals and characters' notes, The Shadow Out of Time, The Hunter of the Dark. Islands emerging from the ocean, Call of Cthulhu, or fictional beings and deities based on real events and mythologies. Migo in The Whisper in the Dark. It's also considered the origin of the popular Cthulhu mythos. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also include in a manner similar to Dagon. Wait, what? Oh, excuse me. Some of Lovecraft's other stories also conclude in a manner similar to Dagon, but let's skip the details in order not to spoil the ending. Me go? More like we go. Yeah, okay. Journals and character notes. Island emerging from the ocean, fictional beings and deities, and mythologies, and telling the story through carving. Cool.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a doré.
Oh,
I
yeah?
think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
A certain sort of man, indeed. Alright, doing those squats. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hi, Siren. How's it going? You got here just in time to see Swole Cthulhu. Yeah, you can kind of see it. I can't zoom in anymore. But if you look at the very top center of the screen, you can see Swole Cthulhu. But yeah, Siren, how you doing? How's it going? You can see it better since there's not a glare on it. That's fair. You're doing great, that's good.
Though the creatures were shown disporting
Or rather,
like
that's great.
fishes in the waters of some marine grotto. Or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Look at that. God, they're creepy. Yeah, we're playing Dagon, which is a story by Lovecraft, made into a game. It's kind of just it's more like a visual novel. But it is an incredibly well done version of this short story. It's very, very cool. Their depictions of the descriptions and everything are fantastic. This monolith with the carvings and inscriptions on it. Look at this. Look at this. All of these are creepy as hell. Middle bottom facing, yeah, for sure.
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
In general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips.
Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself.
That's terrifying. That's legitimately terrifying. You don't know what would be creepier, turning a corner and seeing see only the eyes light up, or seeing only the face light up? I think the face of this thing in particular would be creepier to see light up.
I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size.
Look at that. Fucking
But
terrifying.
in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary
Beanie.
gods of some
You can be
primitive
just like
fishing or
Swallow Thulu
seafaring
too.
tribe.
You can be just like Soul Tulu too. Okay. Yes, I gotta. Wanna grow up big and strong like Soul Thulu. Swole Thulu! Saul! Alright, oh. I gotta do these squats. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Whew. I'll click that clip after. Beanie, thank you again for the donations. I'm sure the pangolins will appreciate it very much. I know Swole Thulu very much appreciates it. Okay, what did he say? But in a moment, decided that they were merely imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Yeah.
Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born.
Yeah, sure. Look at that. So cool.
Awestruck at
big
this
imaginary
unexpected
friends,
glimpse
yeah.
into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters.
Oh, that's so cool.
Vast, Polyphemus-like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith.
Polyphemus-like and loathsome. It darted like a stupendous monster to the monolith. Cool.
About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing.
I love the change in the color of the sky. I've been there, brother. Brother.
I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods.
You still hate those legs? Yeah, same.
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital,
I made it.
brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing.
I ain't got no body. Where'd my body go?
Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
The journalist. Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism in 1915. He started publishing his own journal called The Conservative, which included political and social commentary, poetry, short stories, and literary criticism written by him and other authors. And you were a squid all along. Oh no! Howard was a skilled wordsmith, but he also took criticisms to heart, which resulted in his decision to step away from writing poetry and concentrate on weird fiction again, for the first time since his teenage years. Dagon, published in 1917, is one of the short stories written during that period. In this example excerpt from The Conservative, the master of horror fiction explains his attitude towards warfare and the idea of peace, of world peace, Why any sane human being can believe in the possibility of universal peace is more than the conservative can fathom. Should the entire civilized world agree simultaneously to disarm one or more nations, would undoubtedly retain secret armaments, and at the proper time take advantage of their more altruistic and less astute contemporaries in a wild career of conquest against unarmed victims. No country is or ever can be above warfare, until the basic impulses of the human animal shall have miraculously changed. Yes, okay. I mean, I guess that's a rather pessimistic view of it.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon was a main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The rulers of Akkad, Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warder in one of the Babylonian texts. Fish god, god of the fish, but secretly god of grain. Or at least also means grain. Grain is the god of the fish. Dagon? Pecan, Dagon equals pecans confirmed. So, It's pronounced Dagon. Or Dagon. 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 Interesting. Muslim is a saint and patron saint of their war conquests. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in the Assyrian poem, and an otherworldly prison warden in one of the Babylonian texts. You were making a joke of the can. Oh my god, the can. Okay, it's a hard G, I believe. Okay, so Dagon. He is often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretations of his name, as in Hebrew, the word dag or dag means fish. In H.P. Lovecraft's works, Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that resides in the ocean. Hold on, let me read that again. Okay. Dagon is an underwater deity ruling over the deep ones, a humanoid race with fish traits that reside in the oceans. He is worshipped by a secret cult called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Interesting. So Dagon, the actual thing, is an ancient god of fertility and crops. Also appeared as a judge of the dead in a Syrian poem, and also a warden or warder. Prison warder? Is that the same as just like a warden? Babylonian. Okay, interesting. I'm trying to read what this says. My life before you. I can remember a time when time itself seemed endless. Second hand of a clock ticking in slow motion. Our hand barely moving at all. Dull, rhythmic. I can't read that. Filling an empty void of nothingness. My life before you. Now time has turned from a trickle to a raging river, bursting in banks with every beat of your heart. Our love swept along by the rushing cold water, each passing day passing into the past. Michael. I'm surprised I can read that. Another pronunciation is Dagon, which depends which Dagon you're speaking about. Interesting. Okay. I mean, I know, like, Lovecraftian or eldritch monsters and gods are supposed to have names that are, like, unpronounceable to humans. And these are, like, it's meant to be that these are just the approximations of how a human would actually say its name. Or, like, the approximation of what its name would be in a human tongue. But, not what it's actually supposed to be.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
You got the Necronomicon just right there? Bruh. August Derleth and the Cthulhu Mythos. August Derleth was an American writer and anthologist. He also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's works after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devout Catholic to the Cthulhu mythos, which excuse me. Yes, as you do. Yeah, as you do. You just have the Necronomicon there. He was a devout Catholic, and to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasted with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's works are often misunderstood and misrepresented in today's culture. Wait, are you saying August Derleth's works are misunderstood and misrepresented, or Lovecraft's works? Because of August's, introduction of good and evil stuff. Yes, as you do. You want a Necronomicon? You'll get there one day, Saul. I believe. You'll have a Necronomicon one day. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Yes, that I know. Lovecraft was not, interested in connecting any of this. They were just works. Sometimes they had, connecting gods or creatures or stuff like that, or references to other stories, but it was never anything that he purposely would try to connect into a larger world or anything, as far as I can tell. What is this? A marketer. Lovecraft's attempts to find a job in 1925 were influenced by advice he received from friends, among others. He started freelancing for a marketing magazine, where he would write announcements and commercials. Feel free to judge his copyright skills for yourself. Yeah, all of his stories are a standalone, you believe? Yeah, I think so. And some of them just have references to other works, or sometimes they will use similar gods. I think, I could be wrong on this. I need to check again, but I think Nyarlathotep is in two books. One as a sort of introduction to him, and another he's just kind of like a character doing stuff there in the book. I could be wrong. I need to check. But definitely things like the Elder Things and their creations and stuff like that. From an ad for Curtis Woodwork. Curtis Woodwork embraces both the usual structural units and the cleverest contrivances of built-in or permanent furniture, such as bookcases, dressers, buffets, and cupboards. Every model is conceived and created with the purest art, ripest scholarship, and the mellowest craftsmanship which energetic enterprise can command, and made to conform rigidly to the architecture of each particular type of home. The cost, considering the quality, is amazingly low, and a trademark on the individual pieces prevents any substitution by careless contractor. Huh. Anything else? Hold on, they wouldn't let me just walk over here and not have anything, would they? Nothing to read? Nothing? Oh no! Shoot. Well, I'll have to read that later. We'll read that when we get back to the main menu.
It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave.
Gibbous. Yes.
So now,
It is a fun
I
word.
aim to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Damn. Kinda fucked up. Lovecraft on tobacco and alcohol. Lovecraft hated tobacco, even though he used to smoke when he was 12, in order to look and feel like an adult. In his correspondence with friend Reinhard Kleiner, he claims that he quit as soon as he started wearing long pants. He also had a very strong opinion about alcohol, as evidenced by his letter in Zelia Brown. Or to Zelia Brown. Excuse me. Had the burp. Dated 13 February 1928. As for the matter of drinking, I have never tasted intoxicating liquor, and never intend to, having a strong aesthetic disgust to anything with which blunts or coarsens the delicate natural equipoise of the evolved human intellect and imagination. Drinking excited my personal repugnance, hence I don't drink. Let the herd do what they will. I'm rather in favor of prohibition, the prohibition of any one antisocial force as well as of any other. Resource: A Spirit of Revision, Lovecraft's Letters to Zelia Brown, Reed Bishop, H.P. Lovecraft, Sean Branney, and Andrew Lemon. S.T. Joshi. You think you're gonna go try and get a nap? Alright, Jeff. You have a good one. Hope you can take a nap. It's kind of weird to have a real strong opinion about that, and especially being like, yes, I'm in favor of prohibition. I don't want anybody to drink, sir. Alright, sir. Is there anything else? Okay, I guess not.
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm. A mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
Look at that. Is that the Loch Ness Monster there? That's pretty cool, though. Yeah. Oh, nothing? I can't click on anything? Okay. I guess we'll go forward. That's cool. Yeah, that is.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
That's cool. Have I mentioned that this game has very good visuals? It's very well done. Okay, I don't think there's anything else. Especially for a free game. Yeah, absolutely.
It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Okay, let's go. And just straight up jumped. Is also a very cool thing. Okay. Oh, I didn't find a lot. Scientist. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term, but at the time of Dagon was published, it was subject of wide debate. After the author used it in the story, critics pointed out that the man of science was a more appropriate term to employ. He admitted in defense of Dagon that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would indeed use a phrase they suggested. Scientist was coined as an analog to artist to be used when referring to studying different branches of science. Yet, in the 19th century and early 20th century, scientific researchers in Great Britain and the United States were of the opinion that many of science resembling the term man of letters was the only proper choice, among other things. Among other things, it was gender specific, indicating that science was an endeavor to be pursued by only one sex. The term scientist became more accepted only after World War II, and man of science started fading into obscurity as an old-fashioned synonym. There's a lot we missed. Yeah, who is voice actor? What happens if I hit continue?
I hear a noise at the door.
There's definitely still one more after. There we go. I'm using mouse and keyboard now.
God, that hand! The window!
Like on literally everything. I don't see anything. That? No. Okay, there's nothing else. Hmm. Give me a second. I'm gonna exit. I do want to get the DLC. I want to know what it is. Also, it's paid DLC. One of them is. Contains e-version book of Dagon, several formats, ebook version of Fish Heads, audiobook, wallpaper. Yeah, you know what? Sure. That's not the thing I need right now, but I will get that later. Who is voice actor? Maybe it says on the store page. I doubt it. I doubt it. Yeah, no. It doesn't say. It's a mystery man. Yeah, for sure. Okay. I'm gonna go and get through all the notes, because why not? Why not? But as we do so, yes.
I am writing this under an appreciable...
Here we go. I'm just gonna use a guide. As to letters, my case is peculiar. I write such things exactly as easily and as rapidly as I would utter the same topics in conversation. Indeed, epistolary expression is with me largely replacing a conversation, as my condition of nervous prostration becomes more and more acute. I cannot bear to talk much now, and am becoming as silent as the spectator himself. My loquacity extends itself on paper. Talking to his friend, December 23rd, 17. That's fair, yeah. Throughout his life, Lovecraft penned around 100,000 letters to his friends and fans, out of which about 10% survive to this day. His tendency to endless correspondence was a relatively late growth. In youth, I scarcely did any letter writing, and thanking anybody for a present was so much of an ordeal that I would rather have written a 250-line pastoral or a 20-page treatise on the rings of Saturn. Lovecraft would often skip meals to afford postage. Collections of his correspondence have been published in various books, and selected letters can be found online. Some readers consider them his most important legacy. I might agree with that. It's kind of where you get a better idea of Lovecraft. I haven't read a lot of his letters, but like the fact that he wrote so many letters responding to people is impressive, and have that many letters and not have any of them just reveal about somebody's life would be kind of incredible if that were the case. So definitely seems like one of those things where you get a better idea of who he is. But anyways, I also wanted to talk about Lovecraft himself because, like you were saying before, he is not a good person.
Penniless.
He is,
Do not think when you have
make sure I get that. He's not a great person. He's definitely
It was
like a wordsmith. I can actually, you know what I'll do? There we go. All in all, he's definitely a xenophobic weirdo. And like I said at the start, he is xenophobic in like the actual sense, in that he was scared. He was scared of people. He is scared of anybody that wasn't really white. And even among white people, he didn't really like Irish and Jewish people. There was even like I guess an anecdote or like just a story, something that he wrote about. I remember hearing about that when he found out, like he found out that he had, I believe, Jewish or Irish heritage or both, and he was like mortified and terrified of that fact for a while. He is like he's an incredibly broken man because of his upbringing, I believe. He's also very like he's a very cowardly person. I think is where that sort of xenophobia comes from. Um but he also channeled that into writing these stories, which ended up they're pretty good. They launched an entire genre, you know? Okay. Lovecraft and the Great War. Dagon was written around a month after the United States entered World War I. Lovecraft was actively interested in its course. He composed many poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers and commented on the events unfolding in Europe. He tried to enlist in the army, which he mentions in one of the letters to Reinhard Kleiner. Some time ago, impressed by my entire uselessness in the world, I resolved an attempt to enlist despite my almost invalid condition. Oh yeah, he was also, like, he had some conditions. I argued that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which is not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or a piece of shrapnel could more conclusively and effectively dispose of me. Even though he passed the physical exam, his mother prevented him from going to the war. She has threatened to go to any lengths, legal or otherwise, if I do not reveal all of the ills which unfit me for the army. I am Providence, the life and times of H.P. Lovecraft. His mother is also like a huge part, I think, of what makes him so much of a broken person. She was not necessarily kind to him, but not unkind in some ways either. He managed to transform his paranoia into words that reach people. Yeah, for sure. I actually listened to like I guess it's a biography. It's like an account of his life, sort of. It was voiced by I forget the voice actor's name, but he's the one who voices Kazuhiro Miller in Metal Gear Solid. He did the voiceover for that, and it's very interesting to learn about. But like, Lovecraft considered himself also hideous, and so he would often like go out. He would not take walks until the sun has gone down, and sometimes he would go out into the night and he'd be wearing like a raincoat or something, kind of like to hide himself, because he perceived himself to be incredibly ugly. And if I remember correctly, that stems from his mom kind of telling him, like, hey, like, one, don't go out, the world outside is like dangerous and scary and stuff like that. Stuff that stuck with him, obviously. But also I think she was like, would tell him that he's hideous or ugly, or was just sort of contemptuous to him because of like the bad relationship with Lovecraft's dad. Yeah, that's it. Stress his mother and Insidious, she wanted a girl. Yeah. Yeah. It's... And honestly, like, the only real solace that Lovecraft found was in his grandfather, who, also probably wasn't the most, progressive man, considering the times. But he introduced Lovecraft to writing and books and stories and stuff like that. Something that he could, like, just sort of channel his creativeness and everything into.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
Oops.
So that
there's this. The Huns. There's also... Oh no, it's the next cutscene. Continue.
when I
There we go. The Return to Short Stories. Dagon was written in July 1917. The first published in 1919 in The Vagrant, an amateur magazine focused on the supernatural. The story is the first of his stories that introduced an element from the Cthulhu mythos, Dagon itself. The pagan cult worshipping Dagon later appears in The Shadows over Innsmouth, one of Lovecraft's most popular works. In 1917 is also the year when he wrote The Tomb, a story about Jervis Dudley, a daydreamer who discovers a mysterious mausoleum in the woods by his house and becomes obsessed with it. These two works marked Lovecraft's return to short stories, writing after he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior. I see. After he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior and decided to concentrate on poetry. Lovecraft stated that it was his friend, William Paul Cook, a literary publisher and critic, who convinced him to start writing a weird fiction again. Yeah, I remember that from a biography that I listened to. The interesting thing is, like, William Paul Cook and, like, what was his other friend, Reinhardt, and some other people were actually probably on the more progressive side of things, and they would try, to help Lovecraft, kind of get out of that sort of racist mentality. Um, his wife as well. I don't know if they were married at that time, but they eventually got married. His girlfriend and wife, um, they would all actually try to help Lovecraft overcome some of these fears and, like,
But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude
what
upon
is
the
the
heaving
term?
vastness of unbroken blue.
Like, just
The
overcome
change
his
happened whilst
xenophobia
I
and
slept.
racism,
It's for
essentially.
my
Where's the next one? It's not this one. It's the next one.
when at and in though for there the region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which perhaps there was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the sun
It's hard to overcome such fears when it's all you knew your whole life. Yeah, for sure. And props to his friends for, you know, actively trying to help and stuff like that. And in a sense, like, it did. He was, according to the biography, like, he did start kind of, oh, did I just never see this one? Um, he did sort of, like, attempt to get over the sort of stuff, overcome those fears, and, like, kind of reprogram himself to be a normal person. In that sense, I guess. My words are failing me, but, uh, from what I remember, he also just kind of, it helped with his friends, like, not being so reclusive, and in that sense, just in general, also helped overcoming the xenophobia and stuff like that. But, I remember he kind of sort of relapse into this reclusiveness and these old ideas after his, um after he got divorced with his wife, um who continued to remain friends with him, but was definitely something that affected him, and he sort of, like, fell back into old ideas and stuff like that later on in life. So Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Irvin Arvine S. Cobb, about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and a strange fish of an isolated lake. Supernatural horror and literature, H.P. Lovecraft. And Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. Excuse me. I dreamed that the whole hideous crawl and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down in defense of Dagon. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells, in his own words. I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old, but I cannot recall what earlier experience gave me such a profound, lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. Yeah. Dweller in the darkness. Like, just in his own words, like, hey, I was fucking terrified of the sea and I hate fish. I don't know where that came from though. I'm just fucking terrified of it. Like, he's scared of everything.
as I crawl through so Norway.
Mystery of volcanic islands. Volcanic eruptions sometimes result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating pumice, porous rock created when superheated pressure rock is ejected from a volcano, can move across long distances and transport barnacles and microalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of pumice created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga, Polynesia, eventually reached Australia. That's really cool. I didn't know that. Okay, now we gotta go through several cutscenes.
On the
Is this it? No, it's later.
all day.
Oh, this... Hey, I see the whale now. I thought it was turned the other way, but it's actually facing us.
That night,
Ah, there it is. The creator of the Cthulhu mythos and the fictional underwater city of Rylech was convinced that life could not exist at the bottom of the ocean because the water pressure would make it uninhabitable. That is incorrect, sir. But anyways, today we know that the darkest depths of the ocean are home to many peculiar organisms, the deepest dwelling fish we have discovered so far. The Mariana snailfish can live about 8,000 meters, more than 26,000 feet below the ocean surface, in never-ending darkness and at a hellishly crushing pressure. Hundreds of times stronger than those found at sea level. Upon glancing at the modern photos of deep-sea creatures such as the anglerfish and fangtooth of the viperfish, their truly Lovecraftian characteristics, hard not to find some irony in this. It's true. I actually remember seeing an article this weekend, Friday, that there was some new species, possibly new species of like not giant squid, but like mid-size big squid, um, that were like hanging around near wreckage, which is really interesting. Overall, Lovecraft is a very interesting individual to study, as weird as it is to say about a person. I think you're right, though. I don't think... I don't know. Maybe it is to say... It is weird to say that it's interesting to study about a person. Like, you're an interesting individual to study. I don't know if that's a weird thing to say or not. But he is very interesting. And I could be like wildly off base with saying this, but like it kind of holds a sort of similar fascination to somebody who's a serial killer or something like that, where it's interesting to study them to figure out why they turned out this way, you know? But I don't know. Maybe it is a weird thing to say. It just feels a bit dehumanizing for you when talking about an individual. For sure. I can understand that for sure. It is... You kind of have to take yourself out of l- not necessarily looking at them as a person, because you're not, because you're looking at them as they are as a person, but like you have to take the sort of, I don't know. Because if I look at Lovecraft, and honestly, as like just me, I I see a broken, ignorant, cowardly man, and if anything, that's just sad to me. Like, I feel bad for him, you know? But to study him as a person, you kind of have to put those feelings aside and just like look at what he did. Obviously, a lot of the racist shit that he said is always bad and wrong and everything, but take it to be like, how did you come out this way? Like, what caused all of this, you know? Same with serial killers. You think it's partially of trying to find reasons why? You remember reading talking about this phenomena of trying to find a reason? Interesting. Do you know if there's a particular name to that phenomena? And yeah, because that actually does sound kind of familiar, of like trying to find a reason, because people seem to need a reason, but sometimes there is no reason for some people other than like they want to. I can't really talk about serial killers because I don't know. I haven't really looked into it a lot, but um like they want to kill, and they're like, that's the thing. But some of them have like a specific motive, and like they have an actual reason for killing or something. It's never a good reason, because there's no good reason to kill someone, but you know, it's a reason. Anyways, creator of Cthulhu Mythos and fictional underwater city of Rayleigh, convinced that life could exist. Yes. Yeah. Okay, we read this. Cutscene 16. We gotta get up all the way to the top of the mountain.
Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. I have set, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal through, and have set as the
Further down?
ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst
No. Is it at the bottom? I guess it's at the bottom. Trying to find the next trivia
urged
bit.
on by an that it but
Hmm. Oh, I know where this was. Whoops. Oh well. I don't think I can go back. Oh, too late. Too late.
for despite Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to them, but whose it was
One.
plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size, though the creatures were shown disporting like grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Where's the next one? Okay.
For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but in some.
The Piltdown Man. Lovecraft would often use the latest scientific discoveries as inspiration for his works. He would even update his stories at the last moment in order to make sure they reflected the latest breakthroughs. Unfortunately, this method was not without its flaws. After Lovecraft's death, the Piltdown Man discovery mentioned in Dagon turned out to be a paleoanthropological fraud. In 1912, Charles Darwin, an amateur archaeologist, announced that he had discovered the missing link between ape and man, the fossilized remains of a previously unknown early human. Years later, they turned out to be a forgery. But by that point, the fraud had already managed to negatively affect the early research on human evolution. In the year when the discovery took place, the majority of the scientific community believed Dawson. Oh, it's Charles Dawson, not Darwin. I don't know why I said Charles Darwin. Believed Dawson indeed found the missing link. In 1953, Time magazine published evidence proving that Dawson was a con man, and it turned out that the fossils of the previously unknown early human consisted of a human skull, the jaw of an orangutan, and chimpanzee teeth. Yeah, I actually remember hearing about that. There was a lot of forgery of skeletons back in the day, because, like, people wanted to find the next big thing and get rich and everything. Like, it was all in the name of getting rich.
I think I went.
You're trying to find a specific name for the phenomena? You don't think it has it? There's a name for girls being attracted by serial killers? Or to serial killers? Hybristophilia? That's... Huh. Yeah, you remember reading about that? Yeah. That is... honestly...
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a
strange.
San Francisco hospital.
I don't know what to make about people being
In my
attracted to serial
delirium,
killers.
I had said much, but found that my words had been given of no.
The atheist. Lovecraft considered himself an atheist and absolute materialist, which he attributed partly to his early childhood. Interest in astronomy and science in general, in his own words. I am indeed an absolute materialist so far as actual belief goes, with not a shred of credence in any form of supernaturalism, religion, spiritualism, transcendentalism, metempsychosis, or immortality. All I can say is that I think it is damned unlikely that anything of like a central cosmic will, spirit world, or an eternal survival of personality exists. They are the most preposterous and unjustified of all the guesses which can be made about the universe, and I am not enough of a hair splitter to pretend that I don't regard them as errant and negligible moonshine. In theory, I am an agnostic, but pending the appearance of radical evidence, I must be classified practically, provisionally, as an atheist. I'm honestly surprised he was, like, you know, an atheist and an agnostic, because it just feels like something that, like, the fear would have been even more entrenched due to Christianity or something like that.
Once I saw and amused.
You know, he's just a weird dude. There's a painting on one of these. Oh. Was that in the last? That was in the last one. Fuck. Okay. I wish I could just chapter select. Scene select.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional,
The scientist. About. Next one is just. Scene. And the last one is.
it is at night. So now.
Okay. Elder sign. At another house where people were stirring, he asked questions about the gods and whether they danced often on Larian. But the farmer and his wife would only make the elder sign and tell him the way to Nir and Ulthar, the dream quest of unknown Kadath. Elder sign is a protective symbol that can be found in various works of pop culture, usually represented by a 5-pointed star with an eye flame symbol at its center. For example, in games inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's writings, it is supposed to ward away all kinds of cosmic horror. However, this is a later version of the sign created by the author's friend, writer August Derleth. In our game, we have used the original symbol as designed by Lovecraft in the form of a 6-pointed branch, which he sometimes included in letters to his friends. Which is kind of interesting that he would, put that in letters for his friends.
I cannot think of the deep sea
Hi,
without
Oppie.
shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very of a day
We've,
when land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend
How are you doing?
amidst universal
First of all,
pandemonium.
we beat the Dolores chapter of Visage. We played through Dagon. We've been having a conversation about Lovecraft being
It shall not
racist
find
and
me.
everything.
God, that hand!
We were just looking, trying to find all the trivia. I missed a couple, and I'm sad. I want to go back and get them, but I also don't want to play through all of this again. I just want a scene select, please. This is so cool. This is so cool. Yeah, I'm missing two. But that's interesting that this is the original symbol to ward off like cosmic horrors, and he included it in letters to his friends. That's actually kind of like nice, you know? You're annoyed that you just woke up. That's alright. We have other games that we're gonna play too. Yeah. I'm glad you're awake now, though. I hope you slept well.